Dream Chasers, what's going on? General Moses in the building. On today's episode, we want to highlight this week's classic, and this one is absolutely a classic, maybe the classic of all classics when it comes to house music, and that's Move Your Body by Marshall Jefferson. The reason why I want to highlight this record this week is because, actually, I'm trying to remember, I was doing some research on Frankie Knuckles, and if you're in the house music industry, you know his name is legendary. And one of the names that kind of rubs shoulders with Frankie Knuckles is Marshall Jefferson, who again has arguably the most. It's the anthem of house music, right? Move your body. If you don't know what it sounds like when I say this, like if you're tuned in and you're not in the industry, go listen to it. You'll be like, oh, I've heard that before. um, I saw Black Eyed Peas actually. They kind of sampled that in one of their recent albums, and they're I like for what it's worth, I like the Black Eyed Peas. I feel like I don't know how they're still making like good music. It's crazy. Shout out to Will I Am. But this episode is not about Will I Am. This episode is about Marshall Jefferson. And once I started going down the rabbit holes of this record and really Marshall's background, and Marshall, if you ever see this, man, I look forward to interviewing you one day and getting to know just your journey, because a lot of like I think we can all as artists, producers, DJs, we can learn so much by like really digging into the history of what gave us the opportunity to do what we do in the first place. And it actually makes me wonder, as many of you guys know, like I really look up to Mark Knight too, and I've noticed a lot of his, especially more recent work, is heavily like disco influenced. And if you look at the roots of house music, I mean that's where it came from. And making it a mission of mine now, next time I go to Chicago, to go take a picture next to the building that used to be known as the Warehouse, which is like where house music came from. I don't mean warehouse. I'm sure people have said that before, but I will also Courtney, who does our show notes and everything. You're awesome. Like Courtney is actually based in Chicago. That's not why I was going to say that, but shout out to Courtney. If you could look up, there's an interview Marshall Jefferson did on everything house music and more. It's on YouTube. I'm sure it's probably on other channels too, but everything house music and more as a podcast. He was episode 35. If you could link to that in the show notes, that'd be great. That's what I was watching to learn a lot of what I'm sharing with you now. First of all, it's a great interview. It's good to hear from a legend. And I just think if we want to be the best versions of ourselves as artists in this industry, it would only serve us to just go. It would only serve us to go nerd out on the history, and maybe that's just my take, but that's just how I feel. Like I really want to like go to Chicago with intention now, and all these other places where the music came from. Even techno, because we're in the tech house space, just kind of like a blend between the two. And there's arguments of whether techno began in Berlin or Detroit. It looks like it probably did begin in Berlin, but obviously Detroit is another huge techno scene. If you don't know, now you know. It's funny because I've been to Detroit Electronic Music Festival, DEMF, Movement Detroit, as they call it, not knowing that that was like probably a big piece of the growth of it all. Go to that one if you've never been to it, DEMF, or actually, so they call it Movement Detroit now. But anyways, I'll put that on a bucket list for myself as well to play at. I want to go back. Typically on the classic episodes, we just focus on the classic record, and I want everyone to go check out the show notes and listen to it. Move Your Body by Marshall Jefferson. And for everyone who got name dropped in this interview, I just want to say thank you for others besides Marshall and his record that I kind of like. I went on a few tangents on this episode. I couldn't help it. It's exciting. So again, if you're new to the show, this is Dream Chasers. I'm General Moses. Drop a 5-star review, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We're going to keep this thing rocking. You'll see on the show, we've recently shifted gears from like an old version of the podcast to the new. So loving this new one. And again, the number one call to action, folks, go on down to the show notes, click play on Move Your Body. And Courtney, you know what? If you could make it the Move Your Body that he did with Solardo, it came out in 2019. The album art is a red label. I feel like that's the best one for anyone who's not familiar with the song. Go to that one, because that's like the refreshed new version. I hope you're okay with that, Marshall. Again, if you see this, maybe we'll have Courtney. If you could dig around and find the original one, put that in the show notes somewhere too. We're making you work today. But anyways, you guys rock. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Dream Chasers, your home for house music. I'm General Moses. We'll catch you in the next episode. And remember, and all you think, say, and do, take it to the next level.